This is the Ordinary Business Podcast for business owners who want honest conversations, a lean business, and an extraordinary life on their own terms. Melissa, what is your favorite time of year to be out camping?
I love this question because we are not time of year people. We are temperature people. So we originally chased the dream of living in our RV, having that freedom because we're from Minnesota and it gets cold in Minnesota, like polar vortex, -40. Your hair's freezing when you go outside, cold. And so now we say we're 70 degrees or above chasers.
Oh.
So we try to avoid anything below that whenever we can.
Which makes sense. I mean, I'm going camping this weekend, and I was so excited because I was like, it's going to be like 69, 75. It's going to be perfect because as we're recording this, it's like early October. So Georgia, we're still kind of like in fake fall, late summer. Okay, so before we dive in and talk all about you living in an RV full time, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
I am Melissa Mittelstaedt. I go by Melissa Mitt online because my last name is impossible to spell, let alone say for people. I'm a financial consultant. I work with conscious solopreneurs. I'm talking those heart-led, soul-driven people who care about the earth and care about social justice to make sure they get financial stability. And knowing those folks, when they get financial stability, they make an incredible impact collectively for our society. That lights me up.
Yes, that is so exciting. I love the work that you do. It is very important. Okay, so to get us started with the RV life, give us like a rundown. Like, what do y'all live in? How long have you been doing this? What inspired it?
The current rig that we're in is a 40-foot fifth wheel, and it's a toy hauler. So for all of you non-RVers out there going, what in the hell did she just say? So when you see RVs on the road, some of them people are driving, and those are motor coaches. That's not what we have. Some of them people have them that go into the back of their truck. That's a fifth wheel. That's what we have. And then some people own what attaches to their bumper, and that's a travel trailer. We do not have that. So we have the one that actually fits into our truck bed, and we pull it. Our first rig was 36 feet in length, and we loved it. It was like a perfect starter point for us. But once we knew, we're like, hey, actually, I think we might be doing this for longer than we originally thought. That's when we upgraded to our 40-foot. So we, in 2019, decided, let's sell our house. Let's kind of see where things go. And then as we all know, 2020 and COVID. And so we kind of had to redirect. We were not willing to like travel state lines and get stuck somewhere and all of those things. So luckily, my grandparents had a second home on a lake that they were like, you can stay there while things kind of figure out. But since COVID restrictions lifted, we've been on the road full time since then.
Nice. Okay, so logistics. I'm curious, how far in advance do you schedule? Like in my head, I call them like trips, but obviously you do this full time. So they're not trips,
Yeah.
but like moving locations. How far are you planning that and kind of scheduling that with your work?
Yeah. So a little bit of background there. Originally, we started this for two reasons. Weather, like I already mentioned, and my husband is a bass angler. And so he has tournaments all over the nation. Actually, the headquarters of where he where he fishes through, they're mostly on the east side of the Mississippi. So Texas, Oklahoma is probably about as far west as we go, but then up to New York, Carolinas, Florida, all of that. So that was one of the main reasons that we were like, it was getting too much to have a house and then try to do all the travel and all of that. So his schedule typically comes out right about now. And then so we'll have kind of our bigger tournament locations on the map. So this year, Texas is on the map. New York, upstate New York is on the map. There's a Florida one on the map. And then I can't remember the fourth one. But anyway, so we've got like our major spots mapped out. And then it's a little bit of a free-for-all as to what does it look like to get to and from those locations. I remember our very first year that we were doing it, I like got this big piece of paper and I like drew a US map and I kind of had it and I was like, okay, Melissa, that was just a little TM. So now I just use a Google map, put the main spots on there and then kind of know, hey, we like this area. Do we want to check out something near there? Because I always, not always, but I like to have a little bit of a backup plan. Like if we land somewhere and it's like, get me out of here, which has happened on more than one occasion because there's only so much research that you can do.
Right.
There's only so much research. So then I kind of like, we've got an area where like, okay, we know that there's a few options here or there within a couple of hours where we could land if we need to hightail it out of there.
And how far apart are his tournaments? Are they like every 2 months or?
Yeah, it's sporadic. We'll find ourselves sometimes we can be in one place for like 3 weeks. But other times we're there for a week for the tournament. We've got a couple of days to get to the next spot and then we're there for a week and then we've got a couple of days. So I always tell Kent, that's my husband, I always tell Kent, if a woman was running that, she would have that so crystal clear of like, here's the path that you could take and here's what would be easiest for travel. But that's not the case. So I'm the one having to kind of coordinate the in-betweens.
Is 3 or 4 weeks kind of the longest that you stay in one spot typically?
It completely depends on the year. Last year, the longest we stayed somewhere, I think, was probably 18 or 19 days. But prior to that, we were able to stay somewhere for 45 days. And I thought that was so fun because part of bopping around everywhere, you're like, I'm just getting myself oriented. And then now I've got to like pick up and get somewhere else and kind of, so when you actually can get to a spot, settle for a little bit, really do some research about what's around you, that's, I find that fun when you get to have a little more time somewhere.
So in terms of work and scheduling the client calls, or even I'm even thinking how you have your Calendly set up. And are you like, okay, I know we typically, I don't know, travel on Mondays, and so I just don't have Monday availability? Or are you like, it's just all open and I just sometimes have to reschedule and that's that? Or how does that look?
Calendly, as you mentioned, that is like my absolute lifesaver. I've got that connected to, we have our travel calendar in Google and then I have my business calendar in Google. And so it looks at both of those to show my availability. And as soon as I know movement, it goes right on the calendar. And so that way it's blocking it off for me. I am somebody who, I don't leave a lot of extra flexibility for things to go wrong, or I hadn't been that person. And then a couple years ago, we had a breakdown. We were stuck in the middle of Kentucky, nowhere for 4 days, waiting for a truck part to get to us. And that was kind of a disaster. And so then I was like, okay, Melissa, you need to be a little more like, if I'm arriving somewhere on a Monday night at midnight, how about you don't take calls that Tuesday, right? Allow yourself to get there so you're not like, I'm going to just take this call in the tiny bathroom or something, So I've learned to put some buffer time into my calendar, and then if I get somewhere and I'm settled and then I can open it back up, then that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, that's similar even to, I said this in another episode with somebody, like when I go on vacation, if I'm returning from overseas, even on like Saturday, I try to block off like Monday at the minimum, but even like Tuesday for no calls, just so I can like catch up on my inbox and reacclimate and not have to dive
Yeah.
like 100% in
Yeah.
right from the get-go. So that sounds like similar kind of approach to how I
100.
handle, not that
Yeah.
you're on vacation, but just like the movement and that kind of thing.
100%. And luckily, I work with clients who are just like so amazing. And so if I've got to reach out, it does not happen very often, thankfully. But if I do have to reach out and be like, okay, we had this thing come up. Do you mind just rescheduling for a few days out? And they are definitely kind enough to do that. One of the things that was more challenging that I didn't anticipate was the lack of internet in some of these teeny tiny towns that we end up in, because we're not always going to giant urban areas,
Right.
So that has been tricky. There's been a couple of occasions where there's like a small coffee shop in town and I'm like, can I please? Do you have a private room? Do you have an office of somebody's I can pay for to use? And it's always worked out, but the internet has made me sweat more than once or twice.
I was going to ask about internet, and because I know some people will have whatever kind of internet set up on their RV.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then when you mentioned the coffee shop in the towns, because, you always hear small business owners being like, oh, like, I'm just going to go work from the coffee shop or a library or like whatever. And I was curious if you also do that, if you're like, I need out of this RV.
Well, so luckily with a toy hauler, the back 11 feet of my RV is my office. So I've got a door that shuts for privacy. I've got a half bath in there. I don't know if with a toy hauler, it's where the garage comes down and you can turn it into a back patio. So it's like I've got all this open space for my office, which is absolutely incredible. Now, there was one place where I opened it and then there was like the public restroom that was disgusting. That was my view. I was like, okay, I got to get out of here, right? But most of the time I have this beautiful view. So not very often do I go work in coffee shops. Plus, of course, if I have client calls, privacy wise, I just can't do that.
Yeah.
But yes, it is nice to get out sometimes. And thinking about the internet piece of it, we have T-Mobile, we have Starlink. I'm sorry, everybody. I wish I didn't have to do that. I try to
I
just
don't hold it against you.
I just try to whisper that like we have Starlink. And it's really the only thing that works when you're in remote nowhere and you can actually get a satellite connection. And then we had Verizon. So, our internet bill is anywhere from $100 to $250 a month. Trying to keep all those pieces in place.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about internet and like the coffee shop. What does a typical, quote unquote, like work day look like? And how do you balance? Again, I'm thinking this through my lens of like, I go somewhere and, I want to go like hike or look around or whatever. I'm sure that like fun might wear off a little bit, but how do you balance? You've got your work day and also I want to go like explore, but I need to work.
Yeah, I was saying something to my dad a couple of days ago, and I was like, oh, I could just really use a vacation. He's like, Melissa, you're constantly on vacation. I was like, Dad, that's not vacation. It's not vacation. For me, I am not a morning person. So I start at 10 a.m. at the absolute earliest. 11 would be my preferred. Night, evening, late afternoon is what works best for me. So I'll normally go, find somewhere to walk in the mornings, kind of do that, maybe hit a cute little coffee shop in town or look at the little breakfast spot. come back, do my work day. And then a lot of our exploring is on the water. It can't be during tournament times because there's restrictions on that. But if we're outside of that, then we do a lot of exploring on the water. Like what restaurants are available on the water, or in Florida, there's a lot of like canals that have, that mossy. So it kind of like looks like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're the era of Fern Gully, but it looks like you're in Fern Gully with all like the moss and it's dark. And so we do a lot of that type of stuff. And really, I can get lost in work and do no exploring, or I can get lost in exploring and I'm like, wait a minute, Melissa, I'm not doing any work. So it really, I I let it I let it unfold, which I don't know if is the best, way to do it, but I don't like to put myself in a box and I've got to make sure I do this and do that. It's just like sometimes I'm out and about more and sometimes I'm working more, and I let my calendar do the blocking
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
that.
No, I like that though, because it does give you that flexibility. And I was talking with Brianna on her episode, and she was like, as entrepreneurs, a lot of us come from like corporate worlds, or not even corporate, but just another day job, whatever. And we go straight from that to, okay, well, now I'm running my own business and I still have to work 8 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't, we
Mm-hmm.
get to make our own rules. I've realized that I do that even, and I've been doing this for 14 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still a struggle sometimes when it's like, okay, well, it's a random Tuesday afternoon and I'm kind of in a stopping point. It's very easy for me to be like, well, I could just clean up my Google Drive.
I know. And the guilt that comes in sometimes, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, wait, but I should be, and I'm like, no, mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
I I get I get to decide if I'm honoring my clients and I am getting the work done and I'm delivering in a way that everybody feels good about, then
Yes, I think a lot of us could do better about like giving ourselves a little bit of freedom, and
for
like
sure.
we can clean up the Google Drive later. We can,
It will always
it
need
will
cleaning.
always.
It will always need cleaning. It will be
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
for
think
sure.
it would be, for me, I think it would be easier for me to also be like, well, okay, I can go for a walk.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes we end up in places that are absolutely incredible. Like, oh, there's so much more I want to see and do. And then sometimes I end up in places like, all right, working is way more fun than being out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. You talked a little bit about Calendly and your calendars.
Hmm.
I'm curious if you have any other systems, tools that help keep you organized, both personally and in the business.
Yeah. So Google Calendar, first and foremost, we talked about Google Map. We touched on that helps me pinpoint where we're going. YNAB, that is what I use for my financial, like spending plan budgeting. I love that system to the absolute maximum. I know there are so many people who are anti it because there's a big learning curve, but I've just been in it now for 10 years. And so it so clearly maps out where my money is. So that is like every year they're like, we're going to raise your rates. I was like, no problem. You can have my money.
Just take it. Take it.
Yes, please keep functioning. And then when I'm thinking about what our route is going to be from here to there, one of the things that was not good when it took me by surprise, but we can't just use Google Maps because they don't have bridge
Mm-hmm.
heights for that. And so I use RV Life, which gives you like an actual route that you can take that will allow your RV to actually get under bridges. There was one point where Kent had to back down a very dark road for about half a mile because we reached and luckily it was just like a little side road and no one was there, but we reached a road. I was like, oopsie, our
Sorry.
RV won't make it underneath that. And then there's an app called iExit. And even if you're just a road tripper, it outlines what gas stations are there, what food is available, We use the trucker one because we've got to get diesel, but those are the things that are like front and center on my phone, get me to and from personally and for my
Mm-hmm.
business.
Yes, I like that. Very simple, but keeps kind of every aspect organized. With the YNAB, which for those if you don't know, it stands for you need a budget. Um, do you use that both personally and professionally? You're
Oh,
like, I
yeah.
am all in.
It's like it's one of those things where I love being in there. So at night when I'm watching TV, I'm like, ooh, I get to open my, and I try to only do that once a week because I did get to my place where I'm like, Melissa, you're obsessed with playing and tinkering around in there. Like, stop it. But yes, it's extremely good for cash flow projection in my business, and it keeps me very on task.
I like it. I like it. Okay, my last question. If someone is listening and they're like, okay, we've been thinking about the RV life and doing that, what is like a piece of advice that you would give them or something to think about before they start going?
Test it first. We did not do that, which luckily it worked out for us, but I know quite a few people who are like, yeah, we're going to just hit the road for a year. And then, they've got kiddos, or they don't do a whole lot of camping, traveling, and then they get on the road, they're like, holy shit, that's not what I expected that to be. Like, you have to handle your own sewer. You've got to, there's a lot of things that come along with living that lifestyle. So I always recommend people test it. So you can rent RVs from a lot of different places, go for a week, 2-week trip and see, like, can I live with minimal things? Can I live with not having my cutest clothes? Like, that's one of the things that I'm like, ugh, I don't wear like super cute clothes. I mean, I have a few things, but so testing it, and then also doing some, hello, financial consultant, here I am, do some prep work on what it's going to cost, because people assume, oh yeah, it's got to be way cheaper, but it's not cheaper than when we paid our mortgage for our house. It's
Mm,
not. Because we have a bigger rig, we don't get to just slide into state parks and stay there, for $30 a night. That's not how it works for us. So test it with a budget to see, like, gas or diesel. That's not super cheap
mm-hmm,
either, and all those things. So just give yourself an opportunity to like really see, feel what it can look like, instead of it just being this, let's just go and and try it, and then all of a sudden you've sold your house and you're like, oh boy, how do I get that back?
yeah. Can I get a refund or not a refund? Can I reverse,
Yeah,
undo?
undo,
Yes.
edit, undo,
Yeah.
edit. Yeah.
And I think testing, so we have a travel trailer, and before we even bought that, we borrowed a friend's RV just to test out, because I'd only been tent camping, and
Mm-hmm.
so we don't live in the RV. We like once a month we go camping, if that. But we tested that even. So I'm like 100%. If you're thinking about doing this full time, you should test that out, and then call me up or call Melissa up, and then we can go camping together.
Yes. This is Jess and I's dream. Like,
Yes.
our goal is to make it happen this spring.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience and a little
Mhm.
insight into your life. Where can we connect with you to learn more about working with you?
My website is melissamitt.com, and I am most active on Threads. I love it on Threads. I mean, I think that's where you and I met,
It is.
and it's a place that feels like home. So _Melissa Mitt on Threads.
Awesome. I will link that in the show notes. But thank you so much for being here.
Mm, it's been so fun.